Welcome to the Extra Time Podcast, where you'll hear sports stories you might not have heard about from people you might not have heard of. Let's get into this week's show.
Hello and welcome back into the Extra Time Podcast. It is still Movember, there is still time to donate. You'll see I've got the goatee going at the moment. Thought I'd bring it back. It's an old classic of mine. Doesn't go too well with the missus, but the boys like it, and that's all that matters. Today, once again, I've got Woodsy and Fish. Welcome in, boys.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And obviously, I am Aiden Box, and today you'll notice there's a bit of green and gold around because, well, let's not beat around the bush. We've got to get to it straight away, and why not? We are World Cup champions for the 6th time in the world of cricket. One-day cricket is back, boys, and the Aussies are back on top. What a win that was.
It was, and I think the first thing, let's actually get over and done with, right? How did we win this? I think I released a reel during this week and actually going our pre-tournament thoughts in saying that if we were to win this, it would be the greatest achievement. And I was sitting there Sunday just going, we're going to actually win this. How big of an achievement was it actually?
Yeah, well, we called it early, a bit of manifesting going on there. I don't think we were too certain that it would actually happen. We didn't know we were actually speaking it into existence, but we did in the end. We were 0-2, and we ended up coming on a 9-game win streak away from home in India after the year we've had. Definitely, if not of all time, well, one of the best this year. Definitely the best this year. I think, personally, one of the best seasons ever from any team.
Let's just touch on that. We were 0-2, right? Who did we lose to?
So we mentioned it back, in that episode in September, and it's possibly the hardest start we could possibly have had. We had a resounding loss against the hosts to open our campaign, where we had them 3 for less than 10, and then the king Virat Kohli just came out and blasted us to all parts and won the game for them after they were 3 for pretty much none. Yeah, so that was a game that sort of slipped through. And really, it sucked a lot of belief out of Australia. You saw the captain that night, pretty flat. The fast bowlers really flat after they were so well on top. And then we came out against South Africa, and Quinton de Kock just did the same thing, put us to all parts of the ground. Didn't look like we could make any runs. And then out of nowhere, it completely changed after, well, really allowing Sri Lanka to blast us to all parts. All of a sudden, we skittled them for about 100 after they were none for about 120, and off we went.
So, you touch on it. India and South Africa. Who did we play in a semi-final and then a final? India and South Africa. Oh, South Africa in the semi. And then India. You talk about, the greatest achievements. Having, 0-2 start, losing to South Africa and India, and then beating them in the finals to win a World Cup.
Well, we've got our cricket guru here, and we better get his thoughts on the tournament. Fish, what were your initial takeaways? Just obviously there's that mega elation for winning once again, but as a tournament as a whole, how'd you find it?
I just got to say I missed the green and gold memo, to be honest. I didn't quite get the memo, but I'm still can't quite believe it, because I'm going to take you back to 7 p.m. Sunday night in Melbourne. The toss goes up, and we choose to bowl first.
Yeah.
And
it was a batting wicket.
Apparently, yeah.
They were saying it was a batting wicket. So. And
then I think people were just shocked that we chose to bowl first and thought, well, that's it. We're done. We're not going to win the World Cup now. We've thrown our chance away. Credit to our bowlers, because those first 10 overs going at 8 and over, they were whacking us everywhere. Rohit Sharma is a class player. It looked like the bad decision. And then... Yeah. Spinners, only 2 wickets to the spin bowlers, I think it was. Sampa got 1, Maxwell got 1. So Stark bowled
crucial wickets,
well. Though. They were crucial wickets, I know that. But Stark bowled, 3 for 55 off his 10. Hazelwood just does what he does. And got to give credit to Pat Cummins, because when the game was on the line, I always remember the commentator saying that someone has to break first. Who's going to be the one to break? And it was India that did. And at the end, they got a decent total of 241, which I didn't think would be. And luckily enough, we had Travis Head.
Oh.
Well, yeah, there's not much more you can really say about it, but I guess before we go over the final in great detail, there was the semi-final that did happen between now and when we were last speaking to you guys, and I just put some notes down there. I was watching it in at SEN, which was pretty cool. And, I mean, the first 8 overs, I haven't seen a side, definitely all this tournament, but for a long time in cricket, I haven't seen a side field like that. It was quite remarkable. If you didn't watch it, go back because there'll be so many highlights. I mean, there was so much discussion pre-tournament about, and there's so many stories, but Marnus Labuschagne, who wasn't even in the squad, wasn't even in South Africa. Injury happens to Travis Head, which is crazy how this all plays out. Injury happens to Travis Head in South Africa in the pre-tournament series. He has to go home and recover. Marnus comes in, and in his, you could say, home soil, because he has South African heritage, he performed. So they're like, oh, we might add him in. And we were not really too, sold on him before the tournament because of his World Cup, his one-day form wasn't great. But he comes in and he is worth his weight in gold in the field because he is definitely one of our best fielders, all forms. And in that semi-final, bowling first, once again, him, Dave Warner, Maxwell in the infield, you probably don't get 3 better fielders in the game right now. And you saw it back in the day. Like, Jonty Rhodes is famous for his fielding. These guys aren't famous for their fielding, but that's how important it is. And it's something we haven't talked about. It's something I think is really important. It goes under the radar because it's not exciting. Fielding's not why you go to the cricket. It's just part of it that's cool. And when you're there, someone fields well, it's exciting. But people don't go, oh, this guy's a superstar fielder. You got to go watch him field. You watch him bat, you watch him bowl. But it's that third facet of the game. And if you asked anyone in that World Cup from any team, especially coaches, they'd probably say it's the most important thing. And they had numerous boundaries. I reckon almost, 15 boundaries that we saved in that semi-final just because they were diving for it. They were throwing everything at it. And I just wrote down, it's the look it gives and it's the pressure it puts on. It's that real Australian aggression and energy, and it's sort of like unsociable, like our teams used to be. Like in 2015 when we dominated that World Cup at home, 2013-14 Ashes, that's what those teams' identities were built on, being that unsociable team, being that team that wants to beat you and have fun doing it and throw it in your face. And they're always going to dive for that ball, and you're not sure whether you can actually run because they always might get it and throw it back in. So I was so impressed with that. That's the reason we won that semi for mine, because our fielding was the best out of every team in the tournament in the finals.
Well, restricting South Africa to 212, that right there, as you talked about, saving those boundaries, but going back to the fielding aspect of it, you naming those, I'm like, it doesn't actually surprise me. Like, Glenn Maxwell is always he is that triple threat in cricket. And I think of someone who he reminds me of in terms of the can bat and can field. Maxwell can actually bowl, but in the can bat and can field category, I think of Ricky Ponting. Like, that kind of aspect is the match winner in the field.
It's really interesting too because there's been a lot of debate about David Warner in all forms. Oh. Is he coming to the end? Do you pick him because his batting wasn't great? His batting was good in this tournament for sure, but he's so valuable in the field. And I think that's why you have to continue to pick him, because he's worth 30 runs in the field that he might not make with the bat, but he keeps them off the scoreboard in the field. Same with Marnus, and I love the decision to keep going with him over Stoinis. I love the Stoin, but Marnus's 30 runs he saves in the field are better than Stoinis's power hitting for mine.
I think David Warner is actually a reminder experience matters. Like, you look at AFL teams, you look at every sporting teams, an experienced team and having that knowledge of how to play the game, the cricket knowledge that he has and that he brings to the team, he's probably one of the greatest assets, him and Steve Smith in a side, providing that for the youngsters that come through. Like, yes, okay, they're getting on a bit, but you want that experience and you want that ability, that the uncertainty of how they're going to go. Like, that's one of the greatest things about David Warner. I was one of his doubters at times, but I'm there going, no, I can't hate the way he plays, because if he brings an excitement to the game every time he walks out, but it's the knowledge in the locker room that he also gives.
Yeah, and when you've been there before, obviously you're going to exert that belief. And I really cannot speak highly enough of the leaders. Big Ronnie coaching. I mean, to have a team that was 0-2, but and you keep saying 0-2, and in the big scheme of things, when you hear that 0-2, it's actually not that bad, because there was however many games we played. I think 8 maybe in total. So you can always come back, but it was there's always different types of 0-2, 0-3, 0-4. And this 0-2 was basically as bad as you can get because we'd lost by over 100 runs. We'd lost that game, like I mentioned, to India when it was in our grasp. And we'd bowled first against Sri Lanka, who had smacked on 130 without losing a wicket. And it's just funny how these World Cups are so long, went for about 6 weeks, but it comes down to just one moment. Like when Sri Lanka is, not lost a wicket, over 100 runs, looking like they'll put on 300, 400, to come in, skittle them, and then chase that down, turn the whole thing around. And especially, they would have been forgiven after that, being like, oh, it's just not us. It's not our World Cup. We're over in India. We just played an Ashes. We just played a World Championship final. We haven't been home in 8 months. It's fine. But instead, in a complete Aussie fashion, they were like, no, we're the best team in this comp still. We've just started badly. And I think it all comes down to belief, which is the most important thing in sport. And I'll die on that hill because we don't win this World Cup without belief because we weren't the best team for the whole tournament. That's India. India didn't go. They weren't defeated. They only bowled out. They weren't bowled out at all. They lost, I think, 9 wickets in one game. Maybe England got them 9 down, and they still won that by 100 and something runs. They were dominant. They had a perfect team. They hadn't lost. They're on their home deck. They were playing perfect cricket for the format, perfect style. They had the leading wicket taker, the leading run scorer. So for us to come back from where we were and then absolutely dominate them in the final in front of 130,000 fans in blue, not in yellow, not in green and gold. So that's just belief. It's just the leaders. It's just Pat. It's just Ronnie going, no, we're the best team in this. If we play our best cricket, we can beat anybody. And it goes back to that thing before. That's how Australian teams are meant to play, and that's why I was so happy. Yes, you get that 6th World Cup. No one else has done that. Yes, there was some records broken. I don't really care about those. I care about the identity we're playing with. And it's probably the first time I've seen that, at least in the colours, since 2015, or especially since, the ball tampering thing. So it's just great to see. It's just such strong mental belief and the ability to keep your head when you were so close to going 0-3 and having your tournament almost done. We saw, England lost 3 games pretty quickly and they were done and gone. So, that didn't back up your prediction, Fish, but that's just something I got to add. And then they were sooking afterwards. Just great. Makes the win feel a bit better.
No, always. I mean, I was wrong with that prediction, but, coming into the World Cup, England were the best on form in white ball cricket. And I honestly thought they would take it to India. And I guess we all speak about turning points, and there are massive turning points. The one that comes to mind for an England point of view is that first game of the World Cup. You're playing against New Zealand. You don't get off to a great start with the bat, but when we played India, and we only had about 200 on the board, we got early wickets and we got in the game. I think England only got 1 wicket in their opening game against New Zealand. They chased it 1 down. And right there, that is just a flaw. If you can't get early wickets with a new swinging ball in India, that's
saps your belief for sure.
But one bowler I did want to talk about in the green and gold, who copped a lot of criticism before this World Cup, is Adam Zampa.
Oh.
He got absolutely tapped about in South Africa. Got the tight at the time was the worst bowling figures in one-day cricket.
Went for 100 in one of the games. I think
it was 113 off his 10 overs. So that was equal the record, which has now been beaten thanks to a Glenn Maxwell masterclass against the Netherlands. But if it wasn't for a chamois 7-for against New Zealand, he would have been the leading wicket taker in the World Cup, which is an amazing effort for a spin bowler.
And the best part about it is he's kept his receipts and he's, all over his socials now, just making sure he reminds people what they were saying about him. And how special is that? It's hard to put into words how special it is that a leg spinner has taken us to another World Cup. He's not the best. He will never be the best because, there's a man that we lost last year in Shane Warne, and we'll always remember him, but how fitting that after he was doing it, 20 years ago, Zamps has gone and done it after he was, not believed in really by anybody. And another cool thing, Warney sort of touch is those tweets resurfacing about him saying Travis Head will be a superstar in all forms, and that he is. best player in the World Test Championship final, best player in these finals in the World Cup, after breaking his hand, coming back. That 100 in Dharamsala, remarkable, against good opposition as well. But yeah, Zamps, 23 wickets, how fitting it is for him to come back. And yeah, he did get hit around in a few games, but he takes crucial wickets, and he always takes them at crucial times, and he's so good at his craft. And for a leg spinner to lead the attack when a lot of the teams have, left arm off spinners or, just regular off spinners that usually do the damage in the short forms these days, Zamps taking the 23 wickets, quite remarkable. And I actually had that down because it's time for the weekly trivia this week, boys. And I'd given the batters a bit much of a rap, and I had to swing it back to the bowlers because they're just as important. And that man, Adam Zampa, well, he sits 4th all time in wickets in a tournament by Australians. So this week, you've got to name the top 10 wickets in World Cup by Australians, and keep in mind there's a couple double-ups. So just think about the bowlers that have been quite dominant in multiple World Cups. So you're naming
individual World Cups.
Yeah. So you're naming. There's 10. I've got 10 Australians here. So you've got 10 performances in 10 World Cups, and you've got to name the most wickets by Australians in individual World Cups, top 10. And I'll give you a clue to start. Adam Zampa, 2023, he sits 4th with 23 wickets.
So
and keep in mind there are double ups. You've got to name the
so
year. If you say a bowler, I'm only going to give you them once because you need to name the year. So if they're on here twice, you've got to name both.
Okay, so I've got 5 names that immediately come to mind.
One at a time.
So I'm going to go Warne first.
Shane Warne is number 9. 20 wickets in 1999.
Well, I'm going to go Stark 2015.
Stark 2015 is number 5 with 22 wickets.
And I was also going to go Stark 2019.
Stark 2019 is number 1, 27 wickets. In a World Cup, we only reached the semi.
I want to say Brett Lee. I think he's... Yeah, Brett Lee.
Brett Lee is number 6, 22 wickets in 2003.
I'm going to go again, Mitchell Stark 2023.
That's your first strike.
I'm going to say another Mitchell. Mitchell Johnson.
That's your first strike.
Oh.
Okay.
Now I'm thinking McGrath, but I'm not sure if he was a... I'm willing to get a second strike here with Glenn McGrath.
Yeah?
So there's 2.
You have to give me a year. Regardless of who you guess, you have to give me a year.
Yeah, he hasn't given you a year once. I'm actually doing good.
03.
Glenn McGrath, 2003. 21 wickets. He is just behind Brett Lee. So in that same World Cup, Lee got 22, McGrath got 21.
Would there have been a second McGrath?
I would say 99 maybe.
I'm just trying to think of before that then. Like a Boone or...
Over Boone as a bowler.
No, I'm thinking that era. Like
So we need number 2, is that right? We don't have number 2 yet.
Merv Hughes, like that era.
You need number 2 and number 3.
Look, I think that Pat Cummins is
number 8
on the list.
and number 10.
I think Pat Cummins will be on the list somewhere.
I'm trying to think of all the other like really good bowlers of the different eras. Like
I'm gonna go for a stab in the dark. Pat Cummins 2019.
Strike 2.
Oh. So I did guess Brett Lee. What year was that?
Brett Lee, same as McGrath, 2003.
Who would? Oh, who else is there?
I don't really know because
Is there any?
Your turn, Woods.
I reckon if there's an all-rounder, I'm trying to think of the all-rounder batters.
like in 2015.
I'll go Nathan Bracken 07.
Strike 2.
Who else?
On the right track.
Who else bowled spin
With the
for
year.
us? Like in 2015, who was our outright spin bowler? I don't think we really had one in the squad. I think it could be someone like a Glenn Maxwell. This is just me talking out loud. Who bowled our spin overs.
I might be giving you an answer here, but Nathan Lyon, I'm pretty sure, was playing in 2015.
I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
I think, just because you're not on the right track with 2015 spin bowler. I
Yeah.
don't think we had one. I think you're right. I think it was Maxwell, maybe a bit of Zampa, Doherty.
I don't think Zampa played in
I'd
that
probably
World
stay
Cup.
away.
Yeah.
Probably stay away. Is that a hint?
That's a hint.
No, I think that's a massive hint.
And Zampa didn't get a lot of wickets in England in 19. This is tough. This is really tough.
It's not going to help by saying this, but you're both on the right track in a way.
Spin bowlers.
Different ways, but in a way.
Did Stuart McGill ever play in a World Cup? He might have. Stuart McGill, 2007?
Strike 3.
Oh.
No, I steering.
Woodsy, if you can name one, you can take out the win.
I think I'll name more than him.
Yeah, but you'd name more incorrect. That's why he needs to name one to win.
Oh, such an idiot. I should have gone for an easy one.
There's 4 to go.
The thing is that there are no easy ones for me.
Can I just say one then or not?
He's got to get one.
Go
For the
on,
win. No, Woodsy, you got
For
to
the
go.
win, go on.
Go on, have it.
Well, I'm going to go back to the 87 World Cup. And I was going to say DK Lilly.
Incorrect.
They said I'm gonna go with Brett Lee 99.
Incorrect. Strike 3. I'll let you guess now.
So can you give us the initials?
So there's
without
someone that
years?
you've mentioned already that sits at number 2.
Glenn McGrath.
Glenn McGrath, 2007, 26
Oh.
wickets.
I
thought you had that when I asked for the year and you said he's on there twice and then you went away from it.
Oh,
Number 3 is also in 2007.
Stuart Clark.
no, I reckon there's a spin bowler.
No,
No.
very quick.
Sean Tate.
Sean Tate,
Oh.
23 wickets in 2007. Adam Zampa, like I said, is number 4. 5, 6, 7. Number 8, you're on the right track. It is a spinner. And you will know him and you'll hate it when you realise who it is.
It's not Gaz.
What
Doherty?
year? What year?
Similarly iconic,
What year?
2007.
Nathan
2000.
Horace.
George Bradley Hogg.
Oh, he bowls left arm Chinaman.
No, I would not have got Brad Hogg.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got
Yeah.
Brad Hogg either.
Thought you were on the right track with McGill because similar iconic spinner.
I think this is the thing though with some of these bowlers. It's like Tate, forgetful.
Yeah.
Hogg, forgetful.
I don't think. Yeah, you just think
No,
other
no,
people.
no, but
you
when-
think
but
other
w-
people are better.
Yeah. No,
And
it's just forgetful in the sense of when
Number
you're talking,
10 is probably the hardest of the list. 87, 88, 18 wickets.
I'm
I
gonna,
went
quick.
Lilly.
It's Craig McDermott.
okay.
So
Yeah.
bit of a harder one, but yeah, that's the top 10.
Jay Whiz.
Got a bonus for you.
There you go.
All time. So obviously all time. Mitchell Stark in 2019 is the current clubhouse leader. Glenn McGrath with 26 in 07 is second. Can you name number 3 all time, not an Australian?
Not an Australian.
When did you say?
Can you tell us what era the person played in?
I'm going to tell you they took 24 wickets.
So you can't tell us the era.
That's all I'm going to tell you. You
It's
should get it.
it's Shami, isn't it?
It is Mohammed Shami in
Yeah.
2023.
Okay.
So he sits number 3. So that's trivia for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. You gave it a pretty good run, boys. A bit of a harder one because I guess bowlers is a lot more spread around than the batters. But that's trivia. And yeah, well, the theme was Adam Zampa. And what a tournament he had. Number 4 all time for Australians at the World Cup. What a tournament it was for him. Big pressure on his shoulders, and he really came through.
Now, Boxy, you've asked a question great trivia this week. I've got a little bit of a question for you that's going to lead into a point now. Our 6 World Cup wins, when were they?
This year, 2023, be India in India. 2015 at home against New Zealand. 2007 against Sri Lanka. What did you say? 2003. I'm not sure who was that. Who did we play there?
Was it West Indies?
Could have been India.
Might have been India.
99 against Pakistan and
87. Yeah.
87. So 6 of them. I don't think anyone else has more than 2.
Yeah, I think anyone else has 2. Yeah.
Does India have 2? I'm
I
not
think
sure.
India has 2. England only has 1, by the way, just so I'd put that out there.
Oh, we don't really count them.
So the point I want to make now is you look at, I'm just going to take 4 of them, okay? So 99 against Pakistan, 07 against Sri Lanka, 2015 against New Zealand, and this year against India. Let's look at the opposition. I actually rate those individual teams as probably the best teams that those countries have produced. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, well, the Indian one's probably the only one for me that you could debate. I think their 2011 team is probably the best. Well, they won, obviously. They had stars everywhere. But this team, I mean, when any team that has the greatest one-day player of all time in it, probably got to be up there. And I think Kohli is that now. Over 700 runs for the tournament this year, averaging, I think it was over 100, overtaken Sachin Tendulkar for one-day hundreds, 50 of them. You know, we grew up probably hating that guy because he was so good and he let you know. But now it's one of those things. It was like Joel Selwood for me when the Cats won the flag. You simply can't hate him anymore. Just the best there is. But I think the other ones, I mean, that Sri Lankan team, quite remarkable, that team. Like,
team as well.
definitely one of their best.
Yeah, you look at
Pakistan, you could say the same, for sure.
and the New Zealand team in 2015. I mean, That's-
McCullum, yeah, wow. People
just-
forget McCullum and how good he
but
was.
where do you rate this Australian team?
It's hard because there's
Like,
5 other ones.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like the point, we've beaten nations' best sides or debatable best sides, yet we're just consistently doing it. It's the 4th time that I've mentioned of those teams that you can actually go, well, is this the best? Is this the best team? Was like the best team in 03, 07, 99, 2015? Like, it's just so mind-boggling that we've won it that many times. And
you really
against-
can't determine.
I was going to say, like, the belief that this team had would beat anyone.
Yeah.
Honestly, if they played anyone, I reckon they would shot at
And it
beating
just
them.
it fills your heart with pride because it's the way Australia plays in everything. Like you see us go to the Olympics, it's the same thing. Yes, and we talked about, yes, we have superstars at every position in this cricket team, but so did everybody else in the finals. When you got to the finals, we talked about this before the semi, everyone's got stars at every position. South Africa did, New Zealand did, India definitely did. So it really comes down to who wants it more, and it's such a cliche in every sport. When you go out and play a final in footy, the coach says, you got to want it more, but you just do. And it's the Australian mantra, and it's how you grow up, and that's why it makes us so proud, because it doesn't matter who we roll out there. Probably didn't matter who we played in the end. Like Marnus Stoinis thing was a big thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have mattered because both of those guys would have gone out there going, we can win this game, we will win this game, and we'll enjoy doing it, and that's exactly what they did. And I think that really scared India. They might have had the stadium with 130,000 people in it, but it's looked like they not crumbled under the pressure, but I think they just didn't have that belief because they had a bit of expectation, and the weight of the nation might have got to them.
I was about to say, I've got the cliche of they had the weight of a nation. The amount of pressure. I mean, India, it's a religion.
Well, you
like,
saw, if
you've
anybody
gotta
watched the
understand that,
game,
yeah.
that stadium, you don't see much like it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was blue. It was completely caked in saturated
For a
in blue.
second there, I'm like, oh, are there any fans? And then I reminded myself, no, like they're just
Well,
all like usually you go to a game of footy or you go to the cricket and you go to the G on Boxing Day, and you can tell it's full because of
People are wearing
different
weird
colours. So
stuff.
then it makes it stand out. But when it was the
every
shots
single
of
person.
it was blue, it's just like, are the seats blue? Or
The
is
seats
it-
in that stadium are actually red
Yeah,
and
so
yellow.
they're red,
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. It looked like the seats were just blue because there were that many blue shirts.
And at the start, when Rohit, who's obviously one of the best ever in one-day cricket, he's got the highest score, and he was belting them everywhere. The sound was menacing. I don't know how they were running in and bowling so well. Like that comeback from, Hazelwood, Stark, and then Maxwell to come on. And Travis Head just entered the game with that incredible catch. If you hadn't seen that catch to dismiss the Indian captain, go and watch that back, because one of the hardest things you could do, crowd screaming over the head, sort of arms outstretched like this, was quite remarkable. And that's where it turns. And I genuinely believe that when you have belief so entrenched in you and you really, really believe in yourself and your team, you generate luck. And I mentioned the greatest one-day player ever was playing for the opposition at home. He's the king of India, and he was in his kingdom. And we generated some luck. He chopped it on. Pat Cummins, he was great. Absolutely tremendous. Perfect captain's final with the ball, with his field placings. But he dismissed Kohli, and you could say that's luck, but when you believe so much and when you come from so far back, you deserve a little bit of luck, and that's what we got. And Kohli couldn't believe it.
I don't think that was luck, Boxy, to be honest. That was a plan. Like, honestly, that was a plan to Virat, because he loves playing that shot. You saw how Cummins was bowling. It was all cross-seam into the wicket, taking the pace off, making Virat had to create his own pace. And for that shot, he probably went a little bit harder than what he probably should have, which led to the inside edge. I just think it was great bowling. Like, I know there's announcer luck in cricket at all aspects of it, but Pat Cummins got it right. He really did on the day.
Quite remarkable, and I just think that's the wicket. We mentioned the turning points in every game. You can go back to that Afghanistan game when we were 7 for 90, and again, it's the belief. It's the belief of Glenn, and we've talked about it so much, and it will always be talked about as the moment of the tournament. But it's the belief for him to come out and go, no, this Aussie team believes. They always believe, right down to number 11. You saw Zampa make some runs at the end of the tournament. And he came out and blasted the best score and made the best innings ever on one leg, not being able to walk, because at 7 for 90, even then, when we could have been excused for losing that game, he came out, put us in the finals with an amazing knock. And you saw that came through in the final again, just missing Kohli. If he had stayed in, we probably would have been chasing 400, because he is that good. So what a remarkable tournament it was.
There's one person I think we've actually touched on, and that's Mitch Marsh, who unfortunately went home. I actually thought he was going for the rest of the tournament. He's only gone home for like 3 or 4 days.
Called it too when he went home.
His family. And not only that, when he comes back, bit of jet lag probably in there. It's just been heaps of flights. He whacks 100 against Bangladesh.
In a dead rubber. And that shows you that they weren't just going to go, all right, we've got this one. They fight for everything. And they say, we're going to smash these guys. We're going to win this game convincingly. And, the thing that I love the most about that is you can see the belief so clearly when they rested Starkey for the last game, and he was furious at the coach. He wanted to play. He wanted to be out there, and they want to win every game and enjoy doing it. And that's what Australia does. He was furious they rested him for that game. I don't think Glenn really minded because he was knackered. But, yeah, and then Starkey came back and played really well against South Africa. And you mentioned that. Someone else we should mention is Joshy Inglis, who came in after game 1. Hadn't really played much one-day international cricket, really, on big stages at all for Australia. He played a bit of T20 stuff, but he's sort of one of those guys that's always been around the squad. He came in and just did his job because they believe in him. They believe in each other, and they believe that they're the best team in it. And 5 catches in the World Cup final, which is a World Cup record. And crucial runs too. Everyone goes back to that Sri Lanka game. Crucial runs in that match. So a great inclusion. But the team overall, just to put it, I guess, to categorise it, we went through mass changes in a resounding series loss in South Africa before the tournament. We were sceptical of that. Why are you changing the team every match? 2 big losses to start the tournament against India and South Africa, and then finished 9-0 with changes happening, people getting injured, people falling off golf carts, people flying home for personal reasons, which would have challenged Mitchy Marsh. Came back, same boisterous guy he always is, which is remarkable in itself. And I mentioned injuries as well. Playing all of this after playing an away series in India to start the year, an away World Chess Championship final, which is probably cricket at its hardest because it's a one game, one day. It's a grand final in the best format, which we won against India, which, as I mentioned, Travis Head was man of the match.
And being there, myself personally, was quite remarkable. I was there day 2, saw Steve Smith get 100, but That's something I'll never forget. Being at the World Test Championship in England, it was quite special. I didn't quite get to see the Travis Head Masterclass on day one, but yeah, it's pretty special.
It was quite remarkable. So that was the first trophy we won after being, well, obviously we had it off for that India series in February, March of this year. World Test Championship final win against India in England. And then a 5-match Ashes series against the old enemy in England, which was like, in the end, it wasn't really a massive result either way. It was a draw once again. We retained the Ashes, but it was draining because of everything that happened. And we don't have to go over that too much because everyone knows what happened over there. The media scrutiny and everything would have been massive. All that moral victory, stick. But to win that, a 5-game series straight after the World Test Championship final, after being in India, a 6-week, 1-day World Cup tournament.
It's another test. It is another test.
In India, in which you start 0-2, you win 9 in a row, you make the final against India in the biggest stadium in the world, 130,000 fans in blue, and you absolutely dominate a team that has been undefeated.
Yeah.
It is the greatest season in cricket history, if you ask me.
Oh, definitely. And I think something that we actually haven't touched on in all this discussion is pre-tournament or during the start of the tournament. I can't remember when it actually was, but we were discussing who would replace Travis Head. I think the answer to that was Travis Head. I don't think there's any other thing. One of the best stats I've actually picked up on is let's just look at his final. He scored 137 off 120, right? India, boundary count for the game was India 13-3, so 13 fours, 3 sixes. Australia scored 22 fours and 5 sixes. Travis Head scored 15 fours and 4 sixes. So he out-boundaried India in the final.
Well, luckily there's no boundary count back anymore, but that'd be some way to win a World Cup. I wish I knew a nation that did win on boundary count back.
It was so quiet. And it was such a hard innings at the start because we were in trouble. When Smudge went out and didn't review, we were in trouble.
I'll tell you what, that's the loudest I heard that stadium was when Steve Smith got out LBW.
And Heady could have, probably any other player in that team probably gets a bit worried and probably goes into their shell and starts. But it's the supporting knocks that only real cricket fans really understand. And it was Cummins with Maxwell against Afghanistan. It was Cummins and Stark together against South Africa in the semi, which sort of got overlooked. But that's the belief for 8 and 9 to be batting and bringing us home in its high pressure situation when South Africa were bowling so well. And then it was Marnus in the final, just letting Heady be Heady, which in the Test arena we've seen so often. We've seen whoever's batting with Trav, let him go, stick in, because that's Test cricket. But in one-day cricket, in a shrine that is full of 130,000 people in blue, for Marnus to dig in and go, I don't care if I bat slowly here, because if you bat slowly in the colours, usually you feel a bit of pressure. You go, oh, haven't made many runs, I need to get going. But it didn't bother him, and you end up with a 50, which he deserved. But he didn't care what he scored because he let Heady go, and really brave once again for Travis to bat the way he did, and really put it out of question that we're going to take home another trophy.
Well, I love how you mention all that stuff because I've just had a look at the fall of the wickets. After 1.1 overs was the first wicket, 1 for 16.
Great shot from Warner.
Yeah,
shot.
So you're actually going like, okay, imagine the Indian crowd there. 4.3 was the next wicket, 41 for 2. I reckon there would have been a bit of belief in the stadium. And then when Smith got out, 6.6 overs, so it was the sixth ball of the sixth over, 47 for 3. How do you reckon India as an Indian fan, like I don't want to rub it in if any Indians are watching, but like how confident would you have been at that point? You've got Smith and Warner and Marsh out.
Well, me personally, like I'd work early on Monday morning, so I went to bed at 3 for 47, and I didn't know what to expect when I woke up. I didn't expect Travis Head to make 137.
So you definitely wouldn't have expected the next wicket to fall at 239.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Nah,
which was
quite surprised.
Which was Head absolutely devastated that he absolutely knocked it straight down the fielder's throat.
He couldn't be there for
fitting that Maxi was able to hit the winning runs because just him and Trav, they deserve to be a part of that winning chase. And yeah, I think in the end, Heady was batting so well that he made Ravi Jadeja, who is absolutely mauled us occasion after occasion, made him look second rate, made, Yadav look second rate. I mean, and they're world-class spinners. They've torn us apart. And when Kuldeep came on the scene, I think it was he took maybe 5 for in Australia.
Yeah.
He's that good. And especially after we got dominated by Shamsi for South Africa, who was another left-armer, and their other spinner, Maharaj, he made their spinners look like they weren't there. And Bumrah as well, who was frustrated. He was furious that he was getting tapped around because I reckon he's the best in one-day cricket, especially in India. And it was interesting that Rohit opened with Shami, who at the start looked dominant. No one could play him. Was swinging it like this much. It was crazy. But then Siraj had to come on second change, which he doesn't do, and he was uncomfortable with that, which probably helped us as well. But the way that partnership went on and the confidence and belief they were batting with made the world-class attack of India just look like they had nothing for them. So however way you look at it, it's the 6th World Cup in what is already a rich history for the green and gold. And I implore you to go back and watch the highlights, even if nothing, just of Travis Head and how well he batted there. But one of the best achievements in Australian sporting history, the best season ever, if you ask me, and we'll always remember it. And it was great to experience it.
Oh, unbelievable. And look, I'm not going to lie, I've watched the highlights maybe 5 times already. I watched them, I got up earlier for work than normal, so I could watch the highlights, and it's just so special. I mean, I know I was pretty young when we won it in 2015, but I guess the next one at home is going to be quite special. And I just want to know, how many people do you reckon in Australia started to watch the whole thing? Like, how many?
Well, he said it a few times on the last few games of the tournament, but it'd get to, like a drinks break maybe, and it'd be about 1 or 2 a.m. And I loved how Mark Howard would say, only the real faithful are still watching back in Australia because it's 2 a.m. And I watched the finals. I like you said, with the final being on a Sunday, if it was on a Saturday, the whole country would have watched it. But being on a Sunday before work, obviously on a Monday, I don't think too many would have. But everyone's definitely watched that replay. And I'm very happy that I watched the whole thing. I'm very happy that I didn't have work on Monday. But yeah, it's just special. If you haven't watched it, please go back, at least watch the highlights, because yeah, it's not very often that you do what we've done this season. And yeah, 6 now, increasing the lead by about 4 now, so pretty remarkable. But that's all we've got time for in the world of cricket. And I mean, we're donning the kit, and we're going to keep donning it because we've just won our 6th. But Australia are World Cup champions. The next one I think is in South Africa, and there's no reason why we can't win that. So now we'll move on, but that's cricket for today. We'll move on to some basketball now, some Aussie basketball with the NBL. And I'm not sure if we mentioned this last episode, but Illawarra, who are currently on the bottom of the table, have made a bit of a coaching change. And it's a pretty well-known name, at least a well-known surname for basketball fans. Justin Tatum, father of Jason, who's currently a Boston Celtics player in the NBA, one of their best players, actually. So his father, Jason's father, Justin, is taking over as interim head coach of the Hawks. And hopefully he can get a bit going there and move them off the bottom of the table. At the moment, they've just got the 3 wins and 7 losses, and they sit just behind the Breakers, who also have 3 and 7 at the bottom of the table. But at the top, well, I was going to say as usual then, but could say as usual, and really unmoved this season. Melbourne United, 10 and 2 at the top of the table. They're really staying put alongside the Kings, who are 7 and 4 below them in second. And I'm trying to find your Phoenix, Woodsy. They've dropped away from third. Where are they at the moment? Oh, that's right. They are 3, 4, 5th at the moment. So still in the hunt. 6 and 6. They sit right at 500.
Long way to go, Boxy. Long way to go.
There is a long way to go. I'm getting a little bit arrogant at the moment, but the United look quite good. The Kings are always going to be tough though, and the Jack Jumpers, they're just sticking around. They're in third, 7 and 5, alongside the Wildcats, who are also good. So really, that top 5, top 6, if you want to include the Bullets. But the top 5 are just quality teams, all 4 of them. And if you ask me, having watched the Phoenix, who currently, like I said, sit in 5th, I think any one of those top 5 at this stage, at this early stage of the season, can definitely take out the title. But interestingly, I saw during the week Josh Giddey, the Australian star for the Oklahoma City Thunder, he ranked his current top 10 in the NBL. And number 1 is my man, who I think is possibly the greatest player ever in Melbourne teams in the NBL, which is a big call.
Don't even say that, Boxy. I mean, yes, CG is good, but I reckon there's at least one man that comes to mind whenever you talk about basketball in Melbourne, Andrew Gaze.
No, CG, I mean, he's just done it so often, and he's very exciting to watch. And maybe I'm biased because I've grown up with him, and he's been my sort of generation, whereas you're a bit older, you probably watched a bit more Gazy than I did live. But yeah, he's number 1 for Josh at the moment. He's been number 1 for a long time for me. He's just such a continuously produces at such a high level. He's got Alan Williams, your man Woodsy, he's 2. Parker Jackson Cartwright, he's 3. Milton Doyle is 4. And my big man, Joe Luala-Chul Jr., superstar big man for United, he's at 5. Jalen Adams, Josh has got at 6. Anthony Lamb at 7. Bryce Cotton, another one who I think rivals CG in our generation. He's done it for so long for Perth. He's number 8 for Josh. Jordan Crawford, number 9. And Big Lukey Travers rounds out Josh Giddy's top 10. So it's a pretty good top 10, and that just speaks to how good the league is and how high quality the basketball is in the NBL at the moment. But as you mentioned, Woodsy, a long way to go. Currently, it's United setting the benchmark at 10-2 at top of the table, but can't wait to see how that plays out over the summer.
Oh, I'm very interested as well. It's going to be one of those things where I hate to say, like, United are always there or thereabouts. Southeast Melbourne, I'm envious of the Jack Jumpers and how good of a start they got. Obviously, Southeast not as good, but hopefully when our own facilities come into play, we can make that a fortress.
And as usual, we're going to move on to another BL now, and it's the ABL Woodsy, and it's really finding its straps at the moment. You've been a pretty big part of it.
Yeah, well, I'm interning at the Melbourne Aces now, so I've been able to get a good weekend of baseball. And looking around the grounds of the 3 games that were played, it was Adelaide dominated Brisbane 3-1 in their series. Very high scoring for Adelaide. They scored 26 runs in those 4 games. Brisbane only were able to get 5. Sydney were able to get the win over Canberra 3-1 with a much closer run total. So it was 13-11, which might mean nothing, but in the overall scheme of things, you look at the games separately, it might actually tell you a little bit more about it. And then Melbourne Aces hosted Perth Heat, and after losing the first 2 games, were able to get it back in the last 2 with Darryl George scoring 2 home runs in a game, and Robbie Glendenning, I think it is. Glendenning scored another home run in that game in the 3rd game of the series, and then Glendenning and Bird 3 RBIs each in the 4th game. So looking at the stats, Cade Fergus from Adelaide is leading the RBIs with 5. Darryl George is the only multiple home run hitter so far, so he's with 2. And it is only week 1, but Adelaide, they've started where they left off last year, winning the championship and looking strong again, and they're definitely going to be the team to beat this year.
Getting it done, Adelaide, and really, it's a great time for sport in South Australia because the Crows in the AFLW, well, they are back, Woodsy, and I know a lot of people have sort of ripped me for being a little bit sceptical about North Melbourne, but if you go back, I said they have to watch out for Adelaide, and boy, they have to watch out for those Crows this weekend.
This is the round where it's either going to make you or break you, I reckon, in terms of your predictions. And after you've gone through the games, I'm going to go through again. I want to hear if North Melbourne has changed, so we'll keep that for the end of this little segment.
What a round of semi-finals it was. After the first week provided so much for us, the semi-finals probably the best ones we've potentially ever had. One of them was lopsided, but the Crows just played that sort of footy that I always thought they would in the finals. Best team in it for me. They've just got everything. They've got midfield power, possibly the best midfield power. The scoring power is immense. The Swans just simply could not deal with it, with the ball going inside forward 50. And just every single time I went in there, especially in the second half, it just looked like it would go through the big sticks. And I mentioned that in midfield, Ebony Marinoff and Anne Hatchard, I don't think there's a better 1-2 punch in the league. I mean, if you look at their stats on the weekend, quite remarkable. Hatchard, 36 and 2 goals, 10 marks as well. And if that's not good enough, then her sparring partner, Ebony Marinoff, 26 disposals, 14 tackles, absolute tackling machine. And they both had 3 clearances as well. So that sets up an absolute blockbuster matchup between those two and then the duo for North of Jazz Garner and Ash Riddle, who also stuff the stat sheet every week. So for me, the question this weekend in a massive preliminary final, for North, there's a bit of pressure on because if they do win, they get through to a grand final, but they get through to a home grand final. But at the same time, the more pressure I think they're going to feel is defensively. And it was the same question against Melbourne, and they proved us wrong. They proved me wrong against Melbourne, held up beautifully after starting really hot. But this is a whole different beast. The way that Adelaide's playing at the moment, yes, they have to go on the road this week, which is a factor, but it's just whether they can stop that onslaught because the Swans just couldn't. They kept Malloy to 15 and a goal, which is good, but by her standards, not amazing because she usually is that one to turn the game on its head, and the Crows just didn't allow that. Scoring power is insane, like I said, and this preliminary finals, after what was already a bumper final series, it's just going to be remarkable in Melbourne on the weekend. North, Melbourne and Adelaide. North weren't the best team all year, that's for sure. They did stick around the top 4. Adelaide definitely were, but North have found superior form in the finals, knocking off Melbourne. So I don't really know which way this prelim's going to go, but the Swans, well, their fairy tale stories come to an end, but it's been a remarkable one. Winless in their first season, to come and make the finals after playing in 5 different states for 5 different wins. Quite remarkable stuff. It ends in Adelaide, but it will go down in history still, even though they don't get a cup to end it. It'll go down in history as one of the best stories in AFLW, and it's young history. So well done to the Swans, and they went through a lot. Their coach obviously diagnosed with prostate cancer at the start of the year. He just dived into his footy, got his team into the finals, and a few weeks ago he got given the all clear, which is another remarkable story. So they bow out, but it's probably most respectful finals exit because Adelaide is just red hot. And then on the other side, well, the Cats. They are possibly the form team of the finals, and that's a big call because Adelaide are quite good at the moment, so is Brisbane, but they just, by one of their whiskers, got through in the end in one of what is being dubbed as one of the best AFLW games ever. Nina Morrison had a monster game for the Cats. 29 disposals, 8 tackles, 10 clearances, and 18 of her 29 touches were contested. And Zanka at the end for the D's tried all she could. 3 goals in the final term, and they were surging. The Cats fell asleep at the wheel. The Demons, as I picked them to do, found form again, but just not enough in the end. They brought it all the way back. They were down, I think, as much as 20-plus points. They brought it all the way back. They were down a goal with 16 seconds left. They just kept pounding it inside 50, and in the end, it was Lauren Pearce, who had a massive final term in the ruck, grabbed it, got space out of the ruck contest, threw it on the right boot, and it just fell to the left of the goals. Went through for a behind when they were 6 points down. The goal would have tied it up, would have gone to OT, but it went through for a behind, and accuracy just kills, like I've been saying so often, Woodsy. They ended up losing by 5 points, and with about 3 seconds to go, they hurled it inside 50, and the siren went with the ball in the air. So heartbreaking for the D's, a season where obviously they had so much success in the men's and women's competition, took out that brand new honour as well, but just couldn't get it done in the finals. And once again, we see another Melbourne team bow out in straight sets, but this one was a heartbreaker, and the Cats, they just showed so much resolve, and they set up a massive preliminary final against Brisbane in Brisbane, which I really can't pick either because I don't think there's 2 teams that have more belief and are in better form at the moment than Brisbane and the Cats. Brisbane obviously getting to that prelim after beating Adelaide in similar fashion to the way Geelong beat Melbourne on the weekend, just at the end of the game, pulling through. So I really can't pick that. I probably would go with Brisbane just because it is a bit of a bigger trip going over a couple states, and they are a form team. And the thing with Brisbane is, like I've been saying all year, if they're accurate, they kill, and they can beat anybody on their day. But what a round of preliminary finals we have this weekend. I can't pick either of them, and that's exactly how you want it.
Well, I'm hearing hype for 3 sides here. Can I hear something positive about North Melbourne, or are you still bullish about them?
I think you can. You definitely can, because they've had the week off now and they've had their chance to figure out how they can combat Adelaide. But their showings this year against them don't really show much in the Kangas' favour. But that's a while ago. That's ages ago now. It's a different season now. And their record in the finals is a win over Melbourne, and a resounding one. And interestingly, something I found pretty funny. Well, it's not funny for a Demon supporter perspective, but their 2 losses in this final series, and I know I digress, but their 2 losses, the other team, so the team that beat them, the winning score against Melbourne in the first round of the finals, in the qualifier, 7-8-50. In the semi-final, the winning score for the Cats, 7-8-50. So those 3 numbers will probably haunt Demons fans for a while after this weekend, but Geelong got that win, and if you are asking about North, I think the game's just going to be won in their defence once again, and it was outstanding against Melbourne for sure, and they got that hot start. If they can get that hot start against the Crows, I am positive about them. I think they could pull it off, but they have to play every minute of every quarter against this Adelaide side because they're just so powerful. They've got stars everywhere that can bob back, kick and goal. They've got a superstar midfield. I mean, Jessica Waterhouse on the weekend just taking her opportunities. 2 goals and 14 disposals, and she just looks so dynamic inside forward 50, the small forward. So they've got so many ways to win, Adelaide, and North really have to be on their best, like they brought against Melbourne, and I think it'll be really close either way. But I think if Garner and Riddle have another more mega games together and provide their forwards with a lot of opportunity, it could be a shootout. I wouldn't be surprised if this is an old-fashioned shootout, and it'll just come down to, again, those final minutes, and can the Crows execute this time or not? So could go either way. I'm not as confident on North as I am Adelaide, just because I watched them on the weekend and they just look blindingly good. I think North is just one step, maybe one piece away from getting up to that just dominant level, but maybe they prove me wrong again.
I'm going to end it on this then. So I don't think I need to ask about Geelong, Brisbane or Adelaide. You've said that they can win it. They're in the can-win category.
I think I'd put it into tiers. I think I'd have Adelaide and Brisbane at the top.
Yep.
Just from their experience, the stars they have at every line. And we've mentioned it during the cricket segment, how much belief and experience counts. So I think I have them in the top 2. And I have Geelong in there just because you can never count out a team that's come from outside the top 4.
1, 2, 3, 1.
And I'd have North up there with Geelong just because.
Oh, so 1, 2.
I'd have 2 tiers, yeah, for sure. So, but that's just being safe and going the favourites, really. You could say, but that's just how I read it, and it could go either way. Maybe North proved me wrong.
Are you putting North in the? Are you keeping him in the?
Anyone in a preliminary final can win it, for sure.
You're putting obviously all teams now.
It would surprise me though. It would surprise me if they. Get over the top of Adelaide, and especially if they do it convincingly. I think it'll be very close. And that's just how prelims are. If you get to a preliminary final, anyone can win those. We've seen teams do it so often. You saw in the men's, obviously Collingwood get over Richmond in 2018, who were a lot better team. So maybe the Kangas can do that, but massive preliminary finals this weekend. Make sure you set your eyes on that, because only 3 more games over for W this year, and what a season it's been.
Yeah. Can't wait for it.
We'll move on to another league, and this is the Bowls Premier League, and if you don't know about this, it is one of the best leagues in the country. I set my eyes on it over the weekend, and such high quality. The atmosphere is terrific as well, and just really good crowd involvement, really good bowls as well, and as usual, it didn't disappoint.
It didn't, and Tweed Heads, Ospreys, now with their win, equal Sydney Lions for the most titles in this tournament history with their 4th. Unfortunately, defeating Melbourne Extreme. It was Melbourne and Moama dominated for most of the tournament. They were sitting 1 and 2, and then Tweed were 3 and 0. Messaged you during the tournament. I'm like, you're like, oh, Tweed Heads just got defeated. I'm like, that's my pick. They're the strong pick because of.
Yeah, I think they got beaten by Perth, who just played well outside themselves, played superbly to beat them in Perth. But yeah, I was a bit worried about them, but you said that they're a genuine chance and you went wrong.
Like, you can never write them off. I mean, you've got Aaron Tees, Wedlock. There's a tongue twister for me. And Chloe Stewart with Coach Wayne Turley. And, like, in the bowls world, they're three of the best bowlers. And, I mean, the Coach Wayne Turley is an absolute legend of Australian bowls. Looking at the MVPs and who played well, Tees is up there. Aaron Sheriff for Moama Steamers. Aaron Wilson for the Sydney Lions. Rain Rudiker for Adelaide Pioneers, and Gary Kelly for Melbourne Pulse. With the best performing female was Kylie Whitehead for Melbourne Extreme. So you can see there was a wide range, almost every team represented. But I've got to say, like, I could not write off Aaron Tees and Corey Redlock with Chloe Stewart. They're absolutely phenomenal bowlers, and they just proved it. They can, if they play finals, they're going to get a sniff and they're going to play well. So it's exciting. I can't wait for the next instalment. But it's been a while since my original team, the Roys, played in it. So a little bit shout out to the Roys and those people that played in there. But I think it's time for our very, very favourite segment, and very famous, I should say, segment of the week.
Around the Grounds this week, bit of a shorter version, but the weekly wonder this week, I'm actually going to cut to you, Woodsy. You something caught your eye, and I'm all for other people jumping in and when they have weekly wonders around the grounds. So go for it, mate. What have you seen?
Well, last week Ohio played Minnesota. They had an easy win, 37-3. But it was the social media stuff that went on. Big name in Australian media and sports, I guess, is Eddie Maguire. And he was there. He was there with a few other Australians, Mitch Cleary, Ben Cameron, and Corbin Middlemass. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right, but they were there watching Joe Maguire, Eddie's son, putting on the Ohio Buckeyes jersey at 22 and leaving a commerce course at Melbourne University to hope to have a chance at an NFL career, but punting at college level.
So, punting for the Ohio State, that's pretty cool, and it's a really great achievement. They're having a great season in the NCAA college playoff system, so they're definitely going to be there at the end of the year too, as usual. Ohio State's such a great university, and good to see another Aussie in there, and a bit more of a well-known one. So we had the Fletchers last week, and now we've got the Maguires, so great to see that connection between AFL footy and American footy going on. And as you mentioned, good to see that the Buckeyes got that win with young Maguire punting the ball for them. We'll move over to the NBA side of things now, and there's just so much to cover that I think I'm going to run out of time today, and I'm going to make sure that on the NBA and NFL side, I'll give you a massive wrap. In the NFL, it'll be 12 weeks gone by next episode, so I'll give you a bit of a 2/3 of the way through look there. And in the NBA, obviously, we've got our superstars doing really well. Josh Giddey leading the way for them as well. So give you a bit more of an update there. But I guess the big news in the NFL was Jordan Mailata and the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, they got their revenge. They went into Arrowhead and they took on Patrick Mahomes, the best player in the league, and they got the win in the end. So that was a Super Bowl rematch, which they don't have many of.
It was the Kelsey Derby, wasn't it?
The Kelsey Derby and the Super Bowl rematch. And in the end, it was Jason, the older Kelsey, getting the job there, getting the job done there. It was another close game. And interestingly, Woodsy, there was another punt, this time not our man Sipos, but the Eagles punter they chose to go with instead of Sipos had a massive punt return against him. So maybe it just wasn't Aaron. Maybe it's just the Eagles' special teams. But they did get that one done, and Jordan Mailata doing it brilliantly. But we're going to the world of F1 now, and, well, pretty historic weekend it was. The Las Vegas Grand Prix, the first Las Vegas Grand Prix at the new track. They haven't raced there since the 70s, I think, or the 80s, where they had a couple races. But the brand new street circuit on the Las Vegas Strip was run and won over the weekend. It was my man, Max Verstappen, winning once again for a record, I think 17th time now, 18th time for the year. And he moves into third now, equal third all time for wins ever, which is pretty cool. He's behind, obviously, Lewis Hamilton, I've butchered that, with 103. Michael Schumacher just behind him, and he goes level with Sebastian Vettel with 53 wins in his career. As for the Aussies, the McLarens, both McLarens, including Oscar Piastri, were just slow, just really bombed out in qualifying, out in Q1, so he had to start in the bottom 5 of the grid. But I tell you what, if you're watching any replays this weekend, well, make sure you watch the highlights of this Grand Prix and this kid, Oscar Piastri. He'll be all over the highlights because he was making moves left, right and centre. And you just watch it, and all you need to do is watch, and you'll see why I've been saying this kid has got something. This kid could be a champion. Because some of the moves he was pulling off against much more experienced drivers, just sensational for a rookie. He's going to finish in or around P9 in the championship in his first year after a horrible start where the McLaren just wasn't going anywhere. Just superb. And he ended up having to pit right towards the end because he'd used 2 of the same tyre. So he had to put the mediums on at the end, and he actually made up places, dropped out of the top 10 and then finished in 10th position, picked up a point in Vegas, which is awesome for him. Danny Rick, unfortunately, didn't have any pace in that AlphaTauri in Vegas. He finished in 14th. But as I mentioned, Oscar Piastri, we've definitely got something in this kid. He's going to finish P9 in the standings. And finally into F2, our man Jackie Doohan in the finale at Abu Dhabi this weekend, which will run with the F1. He's got a chance to finish solidly in the top 3 in the F2 as well, and he's got a future in motorsport, whether that be F2 again next year or F1 in the future. Jack Doohan can finish off his superb season this weekend in Abu Dhabi. Oscar and Daniel will be looking for more points as well, but a great effort from Oscar in Vegas. Hopefully Danny can find a bit more pace in Abu Dhabi this weekend. And finally, in Around the Grounds this week, can't go without mentioning our boys in the football. Socceroos, well, they had their first couple of World Cup qualifiers. They played Bangladesh at home in front of 20k at Amy. Great atmosphere that was. I was watching a bit of that on the telly, and we ended up winning quite convincingly. 7-0, just a casual 7-0 win to open up our World Cup qualifying campaign. And then we had a big trip over to Palestine. That was an away trip, so that one was in the middle of the night. I didn't quite catch that one, but Harry Suter scored the only goal of that game, 1-0 win. So starting our World Cup qualifying campaign quite well with 2 wins, and we'll be looking to make another World Cup performance in 2026 in Mexico, the US and Canada. But that's all we've got time for Aussies Around the Grounds, and that's all we've got time for on the podcast. A bit of a longer one this week because we're celebrating what was a remarkable win by our national cricket team, their 6th World Cup. Make sure you tune in next week. We'll have that NFL wrap, like I mentioned, and much more. AFLW review of the prelims and grand final preview as well. So stick with us, and we'll see you then.